For the past many years we've gone camping, we've always had to carry this blanket simply because Ajani's favorite blanket. She will not go anywhere without this. And while it's a warm blanket, I hate it because it's bulky, it's heavy, it takes up so much space. And quite honestly, taking it in and out of the 4B, it's more like wrestling with a wild boar. So finally, I found a way to keep her happy and make my life a lot easier. Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duncan from Overland Journals, and if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscription button and the notification bell, because my channel is all about sharing my experiences in overlanding with the rest of the community, and I bring out a video every single week. So in today's video, whenever we traveled, whenever we went camping, there was this big blanket which Ajani would carry around, her favorite blanket. Now, while I must admit it's really warm and gets toasty in it, it's just ridiculous because it's huge, it's bulky, and it's pretty heavy. But I had to keep Ajani happy, so I kept taking it, but came to a point I didn't want to travel with it. It just takes up space, which I could utilize for something else. So eventually I convinced her to go into a sleeping bag. She hates sleeping bags. She's always hated sleeping bags, but I managed to convince her to go into one of these. So in this video, I thought I'll share with you the process of selecting a sleeping bag and the things to look out for. And at the end of the video, if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. And if you want further information, you can write to me at duncan@overlandjournals.com, and I'm happy to share any other information with you. Okay, so let's start with the different types of sleeping bags out there now. The two popular ones is what we call a mummy type sleeping bag and a rectangular sleeping bag. Now the mummy type, referring to Egyptian mummies, pretty much when you go into the bag, you're pretty much like a mummy, and it kind of hugs onto your body. And one of the things nice about that is because it hugs onto your body, there's very little air pockets inside, and that keeps you very warm. Whereas the rectangular one, there's a lot more space, and it's not as warm as compared to a mummy type, but still nevertheless it does its job if you get the right temperature rating, which we'll come to in a minute, so keep watching. Now, one of the downsides of the mummy type is because it fits so snug. If you're the type who sleeps on your side, or if you tend to sort of wiggle around, move about when you're asleep, then the mummy type may not necessarily work. And that was the case with us, because we both tend to sleep on our sides and we sort of twist and turn while we are asleep. So the mummy type wasn't going to work for us, and particularly Ajani, she hates it because it makes her feel very claustrophobic. So we went for the rectangular type. Now the rectangular type, there's another cool thing about it, because you can have it as a single sleeping bag, or you can put two together and convert it into a double sleeping bag. Now keep watching the video, I'll do a little demo a little later on. Now to the different types of materials used in making sleeping bags. So the popular types are synthetic, like the one I've got here, and as well as those made out of dow or duck feather. Then there is a canvas type sleeping bags as well. I've never tried one of those, so I can't really comment on that, so I'll leave that aside. Now, with the duck feather type or dow, the advantages of it is, one, it keeps you really super warm. Secondly, it's very light as compared to a synthetic, and also it packs away real compact, doesn't take up too much volume when you pack it away. Now, on the other hand, synthetic will also be giving you that warmth, however, it won't pack in as compact as a dow type sleeping bag would do. At the same time, it may not be as light, but again, it doesn't mean it's very heavy, so it's a little bit here and there. Now, the disadvantage with dow sleeping bags is that it tends to take in moisture. Now, whereas synthetic, depending on the type of materials that's gone into the particular bag, it does not take in synthetic. So if you're the kind like us who likes to sleep out in the open at times, then dow may not be the one that's appropriate for you, more synthetic. So that's exactly, again, what we did. We went for a synthetic type because sometimes we like to sleep out in the open, have the big skies on top of us and get that beautiful view. So we do tend to sleep outside occasionally. So synthetic was the way to go for us. Now, talking of the material used, so if you're going for a synthetic, what's very important is to take a look at the material that's gone into the construction of the sleeping bag, and particularly what the outer layer is made out of. Now, in this particular one, the outer is made out of ripstop polyester. The grading is 210T. So take a look at that and then do a little bit more research and learn for yourself. So that's very important. So to keep it, so in this particular one that I've got here, so the fill, now that's also another thing that's important. So it's not just the outer, you also need to make sure that the fill is thick or not so thick, depending on what you like, what you prefer, or what conditions you're going to be using this in. Now, in our case, like I said, we're going to be occasionally using it outdoors, entirely outdoors, outside the tent, as well as sometimes we will be going out into the Outback desert. Desert conditions can get really cold, so we want to feel snug inside. So we went for the fill, which is called the exotherm fill. It's very nice and fluffy or cushiony, so that's something we liked and we enjoyed. And second is the lining itself. It's called Flannel Tech. That's a trade name that they use. And more importantly for us was the outer lining and how thick the outer lining was to keep moisture out. For us, considering the price value point as well, this was good enough for us. So now once you've figured out what shape of sleeping bag is going to work for you, and also you've figured out the comforts in terms of the thickness of the flannel and the outer layers, that's the material that's gone into the manufacture of the sleeping bag. Next thing is to figure out which temperature rating works for you. Now, usually when you go into a camping store and you look at sleeping bags, the big number that sticks out, it gives you the temperature rating. So it'll say -1 or 0 or -12. Now this particular one, when you look at it, it's a big massive -12 degrees. But that's what they call the extreme rating. So you need to be aware of this particular point, because when you look at a sleeping bag, they'll give you two ratings. It'll give you the comfort rating and it'll give you the extreme rating. In this particular bag, which I've bought, the comfort rating is -7 degrees and the extreme rating is -12 degrees. So what's the difference between the two? Okay, so this is based on what they call the standard or average woman's comfort level. And that's because women tend to sleep colder than men do. So it's based on the most comfortable point or comfortable level of temperature for a woman. Now, the comfort rating, which is -7 in the ones that I've got, that'll be that level of comfort based on a woman, and men tend to sleep a bit warmer, but that'll work perfectly for both men and women. The extreme rating is that limit of the comfort or temperature range a standard or average woman can handle. So that's very important to keep in mind. So when it says -12 as your big, display number on a camp sleeping bag, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll withstand cold into up to -12 degrees out there. So keep that in mind, and each individual is different. Now, in our case, Johnny is not your average or standard woman, and I'm not saying this in a funny way, but she feels the cold far quicker than even your average woman would do. So I had to be very careful on what I selected to keep her comfortable and keep her happy when we, that's what it's all about when you go camping or go on a trip. Everybody's got to enjoy themselves. So therefore, I had a choice between the extreme -12, comfort level -7, or there were others in the choice that I was looking at, which was varying, in various different levels of temperature. So this is what worked for us. So you need to figure out what will work for you as an individual or your partner. Now that we've figured out the shape of the sleeping bag that you would prefer, the type of material that gone into the construction of the sleeping bag, and also the temperature rating, next is to look at some comfort features. Firstly, in terms of comfort, some sleeping bags come with a hood like this one. So that's a hood. The beautiful thing about having a hood is once you have gone into your sleeping bag, this can be kept sort of as a hood around your head, keeping the cold out. Now, if you like that sort of thing, then go for one with the hood, but there are other sleeping bags which do not have the hood. So it depends on where you intend to sleep. Again, like I said, we like to sleep outdoors sometimes instead of being inside the swag. And then, of course, and particularly in my case, I've got no protection over here, so keeping my head warm. And that's because that's where you tend to lose a lot of heat, is from your head. And like me, if you don't have hair, then you've got a serious problem. So having a hood is very important. And also, one of the things I love is once I've gone into the sleeping bag, I kind of tend to throw this over my face as well, and keeps me really snug and warm. Secondly, some sleeping bags, now this particular one doesn't have this feature, but I've seen some sleeping bags have these little pockets on the side where you can put in a cell phone or an iPod or something smaller, maybe perhaps your wristwatch or something. You can put it in and keep it safely away or tucked away inside, so look out for that. This particular one didn't have that. Didn't really matter to me because most of the time, as I said, we sleep in the swag and I keep it in the pockets of my swag. So that's another little feature if that's important to you. Now, we've bought 2 single sleeping bags, but as I said earlier in the video, this can be converted into a double sleeping bag if we wanted to. And the reason, now you may wonder, because out in the market you can get double sleeping bags. And that if that works for you, that's perfect. But in our case, sometimes I tend to go and do camping by myself, solo trips. So in the solo sleep, I really don't want to carry a double sleeping bag. So a single one would work perfectly for me. But when the 2 of us go, myself and Ajani, then we can either sleep individually, if that's what we wanted to, or we can put the 2 together and make it into a double sleeping bag. And I'll show you how that's done and a few things to keep in mind. Now, if you are getting a single sleeping bag or 2 single sleeping bags to convert into a double sleeping bag whenever you wanted, then it's very important to figure out which side of the sleeping bag the zipper is. That's the first important thing. Secondly, also it's important to be 2 sleeping bags from the same brand, because different manufacturers tend to use different types of zippers, so they may not necessarily work together. So that's critical as well. Now, when you buy a sleeping bag, it's always indicated whether it's a left or a right. What that means is on which side the zipper is. Now what I've done is I bought 2, one is the left and one's the right, so that when we sleep and you put the 2 sleeping bags side by side, then the 2 zippers will meet. So here's our 2 sleeping bags. We went for 2 different colors. So this is the color I preferred, and that's the color Ajani preferred. Not necessarily her favorite color, but that's about the only choice she had. So as you can see, these 2 are 2 hooded sleeping bags, and my one's got a zipper on the right hand side, and the Johnny's one has got a zipper on the left hand side, so they match up perfectly. And there you go. By putting the 2 zips together, we've now got a double sleeping bag. So there is, space from underneath for us to, if we wanted to hug each other or whatever. So there you go. So that's the beauty about getting 2 individual sleeping bags as compared to a double sleeping bag, because you can use it as a single sleeping bag whenever you wanted to, or on the other hand, you can convert it into a double sleeping bag. Now, there are many different brands of sleeping bags out there. So, I bought an Austrail, not trying to promote Austrail by any means, but it's what worked for us in terms of all the features that I was looking for. As compared to the price point, it worked well for us, and I'm yet to put this through a proper real-life camping test, which will happen down the track, and I'll do a long-term review as time progresses. So look out for those features and look out for try different brands, whichever that works for you, and then pick the one that best works for you. Now, one of the things I absolutely hate when it comes to sleeping bags and also camping tents is that manufacturers don't really seem to pay much attention to how user-friendly it is, or not for that matter, when you have to pack it up and put it back in this bag. Because from the factory it comes nice and tight because they got all the equipment they need to do that. But out in the open where we go, we don't have the luxury of that. You got sand probably on the ground or some muck, and you want to get it in the bag. It is such a mission. So here's what I do, and maybe it's just me only in this situation. Maybe some of you are watching don't have this problem. But what I do is I roll it up So I roll it up and put a strap around it. Now the easiest strap to use would be one of those luggage straps you can get from the hardware store. I had to have this strap lying around, so I didn't want to put it to waste. Get that strap around it, and then it's a lot easier to get it into the bag. There you go. So that was a lot easier than it would have been if I didn't put the strap. As I said, why manufacturers don't bother to think about that? Maybe it's just the bags that I've tried in the past. Maybe some do come with the straps. Leave them in the comments below if you have come across those. But yeah, so make your life a little easier. So I hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscription button and the notification bell, because I bring out a video every single week. And thanks for watching.